He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to the show, the Alex Marlow Show. I'm glad you're here. It is the end of my whirlwind first week with Breaking the Law out. I'll give you some more details as well as some breaking exclusive news from Breitbart News and a good catch up. But yeah, it's been wild. It's been a wild time. This is my 15th show today. My 15th show that I've done. So my own show, I get 15th priority. I did 12 local news shows today. I did Real America's Voice this morning in my Breitbart Confidential show with Mike Huckabee. So I think you guys could probably be able to get that. We did a long-form interview with Mike Huckabee from Israel for our Founders Roundtable. I think if you guys sign up really fast, I think you can we'll make that available to all of you, which is very cool. It's great stuff. And I love my subscribers and people who participate in the Breitbart Fight Club, our premium offering, which also gets you advertising-free content at Breitbart News. But yeah, it's interesting because normally there's sort of a line of demarcation after a week after your book has been out, because you kind of left it all in the field to see if you can make some of those bestseller lists, which makes advertising very helpful and getting your foot in the door for a lot of different hits. And then still, though, my slate is loaded up. Tomorrow, the Vince Colonnese podcast, which used to be the Bongino podcast, got Newsmax hit, Michael Savage's podcast, Jack Posobiec's show, Dr. Drew. And it goes on from there. Glenn Beck on Thursday, Scott Jennings on Thursday as well. They're getting good feedback from my Megyn Kelly debut yesterday. So it's been fun. It's been really nice to get the acknowledgement and the recognition, and it feels good. So thanks to all of you for sticking with me, because normally I spend a lot of time immersed in the headlines, immersed in my research, and then the rest of my time is with my family. So it's nice to hear so much feedback, but people are loving Breaking the Law thus far. Out of 9 reviews on Amazon and 6 reviews on Audible, all are 5 stars. So, yeah, no, I'll be honest with you. I would imagine the people who've read the book in the first 3 days are fans already. But 5 stars is big, and that's great. And you will enjoy the book. You will love it. You'll love the book. It's good. It's fun. You will be smarter for reading it. Again, I don't do these things as a joke. I've been trying to leave little breadcrumbs for people around the internet. And the one that I left today is my latest investigation that I've called for. You guys know I've been calling for investigations into all sorts of different people who are associated with the lawfare. I want to name names, call out the bad guys. I have my big piece on Juan Merchan yesterday. And then this morning we put one out for Louis Kaplan. Louis Kaplan was the the judge who presided over the farcical E. Jean Carroll cases. And again, if you're skeptical of whether or not you're going to like Breaking the Law, if you see it at a bookstore, by all means, start at the top of the Eugene Carroll chapter. If you're not laughing in the first few pages, then again, I don't know what to tell you. I got to say, I did try to visit my books yesterday. We went to the Barnes & Noble in my neighborhood. This is my 3rd book release because Breaking the News came out right when I moved to my current neighborhood. So I go to the same Barnes & Noble, check out where they put my book. And so Breaking the News, my first book, they put that right in the front on sort of like an end cap. What do you call those things? The end of an aisle, something like that. You guys know the terminology. And it was a really nice display, a lot of copies. And then Breaking Biden, which did very well. Breaking Biden was a big hit. They had 2 copies in the back, so I didn't get any front of the house treatment there. And I will say Breaking the Law was in the front, but they only 2 copies out, and they were on their side. Like, they didn't have the front facing. Check out the cool cover. It might be my coolest cover. Those of you can see it on the I'll pan my camera over. Those of you who are not watching on the screen, just go online, check it out. It's a great cover. I mean, that takes a lot of design. These guys are really good, Simon & Schuster. I wanted to have the scales of justice. I didn't want a Trump photo. I didn't think that made, because I'm going broader than Trump. And the scales of justice. I wanted to be scales of justice. And then it's getting broken, but I specifically wanted to get broken with being shot. So I thought that was the way to do it. And it just looks cool. The graphic looks super, super cool. Got the Trump quote. I want people to see that. So it wasn't there. And then I brought all my children, and I think at least 3 of them threw tantrums while we were at the bookstore. So, it's all right. But I have to admit, I did take an old book from 2024 that was somehow in the very front, and I did swap it out, so I got better placement. So those of you who might know where I live, north of LA, you'll make it a little easier for you to find it. But the bookstores really cook stuff a lot, and that's where when you see bestseller lists, why I act like there's some editorialization and drama. Part of it's because the establishment chooses winners and losers. When you do stuff where you combine print and ebook, then if you look at whatever is your ebook reader, or you look whatever is where you get your digital downloads for audio, they suggest certain books for you, and those books are all establishment books. They're all safe books. None of them are dangerous. They're all written by, New York Times writers or Columbia professors or things like that. They're not guys who run virtual newsrooms for Breitbart. We're not the ones who get the book suggested for us. And so, we get headwinds, but I love it. I love the challenge. Bring it on. And it's just been such a great treat to get to sort of hone my craft as a guest on shows, because I've spent so much more time over the years as a host and as a guest, and it's nice to do that. But I'll tell you, so my details today about Louis A. Kaplan, one of the people who needs to be investigated. I won't spend the time to go through all the details of the E. Jean Carroll case. I'll leave that for you readers, but it is surreal. First of all, the case it was the brainchild from the mind of George Conway, the legal pundit who made his career attacking Trump. The legal team funded by Reid Hoffman, who I've been talking about all week on the show, LinkedIn billionaire, Biden ally. Carroll doesn't remember the year it took place. There were no witnesses, and apparently she didn't scream. She claimed to have saved the dress that she wore that day, did not wash it. Yet when Trump said, well, that's great, turn it over, let's see the evidence, let's see if I was there on the dress, apparently she would not turn it over. So maybe it's still in her closet. I don't know, maybe it's still unwashed. E. Jean Carroll writes about sex in a column, and she's a left-wing person. And yet she somehow did not make these allegations during the Me Too era. She waited throughout the whole Me Too era to make the allegations, to sync it up with Trump running for president and her writing a book. Always very suspicious. Her recounting of the events that day are almost identical to a plot of an episode of Law & Order Special Victims Unit. I note Special Victims Unit. I make sure to say that because Carroll was a fan of Law & Order, but only regular Law & Order. She was not a fan of Law & Order SVU, as far as we know. But she was a fan of The Apprentice. So she liked A Law & Order. She liked The Apprentice. But she didn't like Law & Order SVU, so we don't know if she saw the episode. She claimed she hadn't seen it, even though her recounting of the story almost mirrored that episode. She had written a column 2 years, or was it 3 years, because we don't know when she thought the events took place, that referenced having sex at Bergdorf Goodman. This is where she was allegedly raped by real estate magnate, a TV personality extraordinaire, and New York's most famous man, Donald Trump, in the Bergdorf Goodman. And she'd written about sex at Bergdorf Goodman. And then where the case gets surreal, and this is where Kaplan comes in, where the investigations need to take place. She'd said in an interview on CNN with Anderson Cooper, where she's changing her story throughout the interview. She's held over a break, and the story changes throughout the break, or past the break. She says at one point that she thinks most people think of rape as being sexy. Most people think of rape as being sexy. I don't know if she speaks for most people, but I don't know what the dynamics are in E. Jean Carroll's life or in any of your lives, but I don't think that most people feel that way. I think we were told for a long time that rape is an act of violence. Now, obviously, it's a sexual act as well, but I don't think everyone thinks of their sex should be a violent time. I think many people think of it to be a particularly not violent time. So she's saying she speaks for most people, and that's why she wouldn't initially call it a rape, because she doesn't think rapes are sexy. So I don't know what that means. She's a very confused woman. CNN kind of edited this out on YouTube, so I had to really hunt for it to get this part of the clip. So it is one of these things where she's got a very complex relationship, shall we say, with Bergdorf Goodman's, the department store, where she was allegedly raped, and with the concept of rape itself. The list goes on, and there's some details that are just so X-rated. I don't know if I want to verbalize them yet on the show. Maybe I will. I'm already in the R-rated camp, and I could take it a step further. But Trump wanted to introduce evidence that would suggest that she's crazy. Like, for example, he wanted to cite to the jury that she had a cat named Vagina. Now, I have an exclusive detail in Breaking the Law that no one knows, but through my deep dive, I also learned she also had a dog named Tits. These are real things. So you're hearing it here first in the Marlow Show. Not only did E. Jean Carroll have a cat named Vagina, she had a dog named Tits. And he wanted to alert the jury and the CNN audience as well about this and about the quote of her saying rape is sexy. The Judge Kaplan did not allow for this. But what Judge Kaplan did allow for is for the Access Hollywood tape to be introduced, which was completely unrelated to the trial, but it was trying to be a character witness to a character assassination against Trump. And so the plaintiff's team used this locker room talk that we went through over and over again, and to show it to the jury to suggest that this is a guy who really loves violence against women. So the fact that one of these would be admissible, not the other, is completely illogical, would not be admissible in a court of law, but this was a civil court, so Kaplan could allow for it. So he also had excessive control over the newsroom, most exemplified by his treatment of Alina Habba. I interviewed Alina Habba about this off air, and I think we touched on some of it on the show. I got to get her back. She's amazing. She's a force of nature. But she's trying to represent her client. And the judge basically said that if you put Trump on the stand, you got to tell me every single question you're going to ask and every single answer you're anticipating from Trump. This basically means she wasn't allowed to represent her client, which drove her crazy. And she was not happy about it. She was very animated. And while she was animated, Kaplan threatened to throw her in jail, but not just in any jail, in a seldom used jail that is underneath the courthouse. So the judge wanted to put her in a cell that's under the courthouse that people don't use because she's just trying to do the best for her client. And this is part of the problem with the lawfare superstructure right now, is they do not believe that you should be entitled to great representation if you're a Trump or a conservative or a MAGA person. They think that if you get a great attorney, that attorney is compromised, that attorney should not be allowed to do their work, maybe should be disbarred, as was the case with John Eastman and the Project 65 that we talked about yesterday. So that's what's going on here, is that they don't want you to have good representation. They want you to shame the lawyers and make it so that even extra legal means are used to make sure you do not get great representation if you're conservative. So here's another thing that I caught, is that he's a fan of E. Jean Carroll's, Judge Kaplan. He wrote to the jury that the jury is entitled to conclude that Mr. Trump derailed the career, reputation, and emotional well-being of, here it comes, one of America's most successful and prominent advice columnists and authors. Now, were you guys aware of E. Jean Carroll before this stuff? I certainly wasn't. I didn't know who E. Jean Carroll was. I would ask E. Jean. She had a footprint, but she wasn't some sort of a household name. I saw the house that she dubbed the Mouse House during my research, and I was looking at who she was. She's got a polka dotted Prius. She lives in the woods. She hangs up garbage as art. True stories. These are all true. And we're being told that she's one of the most successful and prominent advice columnists in the world. So all this is unfair. All this is blatantly political. But the most political moment was the judge proactively released this clarification saying that Trump had in fact raped Carroll, even though the jury did not find that he had raped her. But he said it's okay to call it rape, and he put out this big statement because he was revealing the game. The goal was to brand Trump with the scarlet R for rapist, and do that ahead of the election. So he did this successfully. You know, Carroll wrote a book recently called Not My Type. She's not Trump's type. She's older than Trump is. She's not classically beautiful. I'm not trying to attack her appearance. I'm willing to attack someone's appearance if they deserve it. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm saying she's not Trump's type. He was just married to Melania. And Melania was, somehow more beautiful than Trump's other two beautiful wives that he had. And Melania was pregnant with Barron at the time. And we're expected to believe that Trump was going to throw it all away to pin this strange older woman down on Bergdorf Goodman. Of course, that sounds insane. Okay, it goes on. So Judge Kaplan ruled that Trump was civilly liable for defamation. Typically, a jury would make this determination, but Kaplan did it himself. And then the punishment there were two trials. I go through why there were two in the book. But combined, Carroll asked for $15 million in damages. Trump was assessed $83 million plus penalties or interest, bumping up the total to $91 million when she only requested 15. And Kaplan allowed for this to stand. Obviously, it's blatantly political, cruel and unusual punishment. a mischaracterization of justice in so many ways, miscarriage of justice. And he's the next guy. I want to investigate it. And I'll keep bringing out names as time goes on and keep giving you more details. But you guys have got to read the Carol section. I mean, you will probably die laughing. It is your heart breaks for President Trump that he'd endure all this stuff. But once the judge and jury were impaneled in New York, the case was over for him. But this was such egregious lawfare. And Judge Lewis A. Kaplan, a Clinton appointee, he's a guy to remember when you're going around doing your investigations. Let's talk to this guy about his blatant politicization of the Justice Department to get Trump. All right. So one way that the Justice Department is, or the concept of law and order is being used to not have two tiers of justice, but to try to hold people accountable. We're going to lock up Beto. We're locking up Beto. Robert Francis O'Rourke, the Irishman. I got to say, one of the highlights of my media tour so far is I cracked up Megyn Kelly on her show when I referred to Robert Francis O'Rourke, the Irishman, as I called him a fake Latinx. Megyn liked that quite a bit. And I even got a smile out of Mike Davis, who doesn't make a lot of smiles. Like he's really happy when he's beating someone up online. But he liked that one. So Robert Patty O'Rourke, you guys know he's Irish. He's not Latinx. He acts like he's a Latino because he's culturally appropriating. And Texas Attorney General Paxton, scoop at Breitbart News, seeks to jail Beto over alleged violation of court order barring fundraising for State House Democrat fugitives. Pretty cool. So I'll read from Matt Boyle, Breitbart of the Scoop. Texas Attorney General Paxton asked the state court to clear the way for law enforcement officials to arrest Democrat Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke for allegedly violating court order barring him from fundraising for the State House Democrats who fled Texas to delay the redistricting process for the U.S. congressional seats in the state. Here's what Paxton told us. Beto told me to come and take it, so I did and beat him in court. Now he still thinks he's above the law, so I'm working to put him behind bars. So cool. Robert Francis flagrantly and knowingly violated the court order I secured that prevents him from raising funds and distributing any more Beto bribes. He's about to find out that running your mouth and ignoring the rule of law's consequences in Texas is time to lock him up. See, this is the thing where you actually are. This isn't two tiers of justice. This is equal application of justice. This is he's blatantly, flagrantly violating the law. And just because he's a famous guy who's running for office, he doesn't just get away with it anymore. That's the mindset we need to see out of the conservative movement. That's the mindset we need to see out of the Republican Party. And in order to do so, I think would get people on our side. I think people like this. I don't think they like the idea that the world is that there's two, I argue, three tiers of justice, where there is the Trump tier, where just by breathing the air, if your name's Trump or you're associated with Trump, you might get debanked or debarred or boycotted or harassed or jailed. Then there's the tier for most of us. And then there's the tier for these left-wing activists and agitators who are allowed to flagrantly violate the law, and then they get rewarded with congressional seats, MSNBC and CNN contributorships. I mean, you get rewarded for being lawbreakers, and that's no good either. I'm not in on that either. So it really is a three-tiered justice system, and I am just happy to see Attorney General Paxton come hard at Robert Francis O'Rourke, who's only a grandstander. That's all he does. He does fake swearing where he's swearing all the time, and he culturally appropriates the Latino heritage when he's an Irish guy. This guy is a incredible character. I love that he's around. I hope he never goes away. But I will say he should be held to account when it comes to justice. All right. Now I think is a very good time to tell you about something that I care about almost as much as justice for Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, and that is beverages. I got to tell you, I wish I had a Diet Coke with me right now. I want you to think for a minute about the drinks you grew up with that you still love today, the ones you got to have with you at your barbecue, your break room, or when you just got a stressful day, you're doing a bunch of media hits and you need to wet your whistle. We're talking Coke, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi even. Though Pepsi's not my vibe, but you know what? It's fine. That's all right. Diet Coke, Diet Dr. Pepper for me all the time. These are iconic brands. They're part of America's story. And it's been over 100 years with everyone talking about American jobs. Lately, the companies behind these beverages have been walking the walk the whole time. America's beverage companies are making American products with American workers in American hometowns. They employ over 275,000 men and women in all 50 states. These are people who show up every day, do the work, and deliver for our economy and deliver for my thirst. deliver for our communities too. So see for yourself, wedeliverforamerica.org, wedeliverforamerica.org. Always, 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 if you have any inclination to support something I'm bringing to your attention on the show, support products, support advertisers, sponsors, it helps us quite a bit. So wedeliverforamerica.org. That's the place to go for more information there. All right. More in the news. Democrat favorability falls to record low. I'm telling you guys, they keep elevating Jasmine Crockett. They keep leading people down these roads where the walls are closing in on Trump, but they never do. You keep elevating the Rosie O'Donnells and not this, and telling people Sydney Sweeney's a Nazi. Of course, their approval is just going to go down and down. Pete Buttigieg, a guy who polls 0% with black people. Pete Buttigieg, who cannot take a stand one way or the other on the Israel-Gaza conflict. That Democrat Party has, you think we have headaches when it comes to Israel-Gaza on the right? The Democrats are completely lost on this because so much of their party donor base does like the idea of some allegiance and some alliance with Israel. But so much of their base voters are just Mamdani, River to the Sea, Palestine camp, globalize the Intifada camp. So they could have a huge civil war in that regard. You think ours is bad? There's going to be even worse. So they've got their worst numbers, and this is why you always see Trump with a smile on his face, because he knows that we've got some time here. And I don't want us to rest on our laurels. We've got to be sharp. The lawfare superstructure is working overtime trying to stop us. But this is still a good time for us in the sense that the Democrats are so weak. They're incredibly weak right now. But we're incredibly strong. Trump has cut illegal alien population by astonishing 1.6 million since taking office. But again, I don't even trust these figures, but Center for Immigration Studies, who put this out, is very, very good. So these are as good of statistics as you're probably likely to get. But they're suggesting that there's already 1.6 million fewer illegal aliens, which means the self-deportations are happening, and we're seeing a rapid decline. Now, levels are way too high. We've got a long way to go. But the fact that we are seeing after a straight up, one of the things about this line that you're seeing is that ever since they're charting data, and this goes back to 2021, the line just goes up. I mean, it zigzags a touch, but it's a trajectory in that direction at a 30-degree angle, and now it's dropping at a 45-degree angle. And that's what we want to see. We want to see rapid self-deportations and deportations, and only then can we have some sense, some semblance of normalcy back in this country. And that's what Trump is trying to do. All roads lead to law and order. Taking on a lawfare superstructure, the investigations, the crackdown of illegal immigration. How about when it comes to the taking over the D.C. police force? We saw a story, ABC anchor Kyra Phillips was jumped by a half-dressed hobo in D.C. So this is a anchor. I think she's married to a Fox guy, right? So she's probably not the most left-wing person on TV news. But these stories are all the time. We go through them over and over again. The more I think about it, the more I love that Trump wants to make D.C. great again, make it safe again, make it beautiful again. He wants to do this stuff, and he could set an example for the rest of the country. Because one thing that he did that proved so many of his haters wrong is that when he was allowed to do what he wanted to do, we've had such success at the border, even without the wall yet. And the wall's getting built, but that's going to take some time. But just with the policies, with the crackdowns, the making it so that the incentives that come here, the remain in Mexico's, the parole pipelines, when you fix those issues and straighten them out, then people stop coming, the caravans stop coming, the drugs are going to stop coming, and a lot of people are going to leave because they're going to know it's not economically viable to stay. And that is a broadcasting a signal to the world. We care about law and order here. And it also shows that all the people who didn't do anything about it, Republicans and Democrats alike, that was intentional. That was their choice. They had chosen that they were going to have our cities be reckless and lawless. So the winning just keeps happening, and this is why it's so important. We got some decent economic numbers as well. I want to check some of this out. I haven't heard all of these, but Misty pulled a few establishment media numbers talking about establishment media clips talking about some of the inflation data that's come out today.
Key categories that we always look at: energy, food, and shelter. Energy fell by 1.1%. That was largely driven because of gas prices falling in the month of July by 2.2%. Look at that food. I mean, this is where people spend their money, right? Food every single day. Food flat, 0%, and actually down at the grocery store by 0.1%. And then shelter, we always usually see an increase because that is what people are paying on rent, and we know that rents are rising.
Yeah, okay. So shelter's barely up. Food is food is flat, if not down slightly. And then we're seeing energy costs down big league. So gas prices down big league because we're top America's energy sector. So what Trump's doing, it's good stuff. It's great stuff. All right, we got some more. Check this one.
We've been talking so much about the numbers, and
ABC
yeah,
now.
usually that's how you play devil's advocate, is you talk about, oh, well, stats say crime is down. However, I can tell you firsthand here in downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen a block away from the bureau. So we can talk about the numbers going down, but crime is happening every single day because we're all experiencing it firsthand while working and living down here.
Yeah, so that was Kyra Phillips. That was the ABC anchor I was mentioning earlier, talking about her D.C. crime story. We've all got them. I mean, we all witnessed it. My whole neighborhood was completely ruined by crime at the very end before I left when I was in D.C. So this has been happening for a while. Trump knows it. Caroline Levitt was at the briefing room, and she was explaining some of the victories that are happening. Check this.
As part of the president's massive law enforcement surge, last night, approximately 850 officers and agents were surged across the city. They made a total of 23 arrests, including multiple other contacts. Last night, these arrests consisted of homicide, firearms offenses, possession with intent to distribute narcotics, fare evasion, lewd acts, stalking, possession of a high-capacity magazine, fleeing to elude in a vehicle, no permits, driving under the influence, reckless driving, and a bench warrant. A total of 6 illegal handguns were seized off of District of Columbia streets as part of last night's effort. This is only the beginning. Over the course of the next month, the Trump administration will relentlessly pursue and arrest every violent criminal in the district who breaks the law, undermines public safety, and endangers law-abiding Americans.
So this administration is their best reporters. They're their best, I think, advocates on their own behalf, and they're really organized in this regard. They do a great job. I know a bunch of people in the communication shop there. They do a great job is doing bullets of here's actually what's going on, and we're not going to wait for the New York Times or the AP to sanctify it or Reuters. We're just going to get out there with what we think is the most important stuff that people want to hear about in terms of what the agenda is going on. And it's so productive. And in the meantime, all the left has now is emotion. You get clips of Patty O'Rourke screaming, that clip of that reality TV star just screaming about how white people can't go to Mexican restaurants anymore. That's what's going viral on the left. Here's another one. This is a Congresswoman Ramirez, I think from Illinois, who is just going nuts on ICE. Check this one.
Well, Tom Homan, let me tell you, all over the country, we will continue to stand up for our rights, and we will continue to call out the terrorist organization that is ICE.
They're pro-open borders. They are pro-illegal alien. They are pro-gangsters in D.C. They're pro-crime. They're pro-murder. That's what the left represents. They're against law and order. The left hates law and order, as I wrote in Breaking the Law. They hate law and order. And what they like is the idea of chaos in our streets, and they like the idea of never having to admit they're wrong. They've got this huge cognitive dissonance that goes on where to watch Trump succeed so easily at so many things proves without a shadow of a doubt that they themselves were negligent and derelict in their responsibilities to their own citizens, and they're deeply, deeply vulnerable here. It's going to take a wizard to message their way out of this mess anytime soon, and that's great news, which is why we've got to run up the score. All right, last one for today, which is really kind of a hit close to home a little bit. Ashley Biden divorcing her husband, Dr. Howard Krein, who deeply tied to her family's corruption. I got to tell you, I wrote extensively about Howard Krein. He's one of my favorite characters in Breaking Biden, my second book. Krein was a guy who might not be a well-known part of the Biden crime family, but he was put in charge of Joe Biden's cancer moonshot. So Biden was supposed to cure cancer with his son-in-law. They did not succeed. I'll let you know. Mrs. Dr. Marlow is at work right now, which proves that. So cancer is not gone. And he was Biden's COVID advisor. But in the meantime, while he was the COVID advisor, he'd set up businesses to make money off of pandemic-related injuries, including money from China. So he had to outsource a lot of stuff through China. So we had the China flu ravaging the country, both physically and economically. And Biden's son-in-law was tapped to be his COVID advisor while he was bagging cash from China because of the China flu. So deeply corrupt family, and I'm really sad the marriage didn't work out. That's all I've got to say. Divorce is always a sad thing. All right, that's today's show. Thanks to producer Misty. Thanks to all of you in the Marlow audience, especially if you're new, telling 10,000 friends and family members about Breaking the Law, about the podcast. Hitting the subscribe button on YouTube and Rumble helps quite a bit. 5-star reviews. You guys know what to do, and it means a lot when you help me out. Checking out the sponsors as well. Talk to you tomorrow.